I started to feel as if that the Democratic Party, there was no space for me in the Democratic Party. So while I know that things, for instance, around like social issues like
Yes.
gay marriage and stuff, that changed how people felt about gay marriage when Barack Obama was in office. But I started to feel like, well, maybe if I don't necessarily think that a little boy can really be a little girl, like, but there was no space for that in the Democratic Party. Me being someone who is pro-life,
Yeah.
maybe I really am not pro-abortion, because that was just my stance because I was a Democrat. You know, you're a Democrat,
Right.
this is what you were supposed to feel. And I did not feel as if that I was welcome with some of those, what I now see are more traditional conservative views. There was no space for me in the Democratic Party. So in 2016, the move had already been happening.
Yeah.
And that's why I say when it coincided with the election of Donald Trump, I didn't move to the Republican Party because of Donald Trump. And people often ask me, you know, how could you vote because he wasn't a Republican or he wasn't a conservative? That move started, unlike a lot of people. I'm a fan of the Bush family.
Yeah.
A lot of people now, conservatives, especially on the Trump MAGA side, they don't like them. They see them as rhinos. But for me, when I looked at ideal, you know, Republicans and conservatives, they were people like Condoleezza Rice. You read the story of Condoleezza Rice growing up in Birmingham. Her first book, oh gee, it was about her parents. I can't even think of the name of it.
I'm looking at the cover of it.
Ordinary, Extraordinary People. It was something like that. But those are the people that I look to as rock solid conservatives. It was just that political evolution that I had, meaning moving to the Republican Party, that happened in 2016. I actually started 2016 thinking that I was going to vote for Jeb Bush. Well, we know what happened with Jeb Bush. Jeb Bush was out, I think, probably in the first month of that primary. And so it ended up being Donald Trump by default.
Yeah.
But I didn't start thinking that I was going to vote for Donald Trump at all. And so I always stress that me becoming a Republican, unlike a lot of other people, had much less to do with Donald Trump than it did me in this evolution of sorts that I had.
No, I get it. I want to go back to your opening salvo in terms of education and the value of education. And for a historical note for our viewers, Booker T. Washington was Republican. Frederick Douglass was Republican. Let's not forget Colin Powell is Republican. And so there are significant seminal figures in Black history, and I don't want people to get lost that it was really a critical moment that for a long time, being the party of Lincoln, most Black people historically were Republican. We can talk about later on where that shift happened and how that shift happened. But Black people haven't always been Democrat. Let's start there. But my concern, Malik, is what you start with in the value and appreciation for education. I am overwhelmingly concerned, and I want to know where your heart is, coming from Mississippi that has one of the lowest educational scores in the United States, on books being banned, curriculums being remixed, as it were. Teachers being threatened if certain things are being taught. Where do you think education in America is going when we keep saying America's number one? And the average American has a ninth grade, I think, at best reading level. The average American isn't reading a book from cover to cover post-high school. And Donald Trump's main target group is the uninformed and the functionally illiterate. Where do you see the Republican Party's stance on education is based off of what we're seeing the last couple of weeks?
Well, some news about Mississippi, and I'm glad to report on this. So Mississippi, I think that now I think it's at the NAEP scores. I forgot the name, the acronym, but we're now, our fourth graders were, I think, ninth when it comes to reading, and I think they got up a couple of digit points when it comes to math too. So we have updated education numbers. If I knew
I'm
I was
glad
going to
to
talk
hear
about,
it.
we have updated education numbers. But what Republicans, conservatives typically, when we talk about education, it is around choice.
Yes.
So, for instance, Donald Trump signed a number of executive orders to deal with the issue of choice. What I realize, even on the political aspect of that, I live in Washington, D.C. now. And it's very easy because this is the game that's played, and Republicans do this. Of course, Democrats do it too. But Republicans like to point to whether it's Atlanta, D.C., Baltimore, Chicago, and say, aha, this is what progressive or Democrat governance does. My local school, I live in Washington, D.C., Ward 8, my local elementary school, I checked out the test scores, 1.7% of the students met or exceeded proficiency in reading and math. 1.7%. That doesn't have anything really to do with the mayor, even though anybody who knows DC, it is very blue, probably one of the bluest, jurisdictions in the whole country. But it is something about our community. And so you talk about the value of that, where Republicans see that. There is, and that's where choice comes in. Now, it is not, and I always remind people when we talk about education, there is I don't believe in a one-size-fits-all approach to education.
Yes.
I believe that it should be very all-inclusive. So for Republicans who look at things like choice, who look at things, you mentioned the book bans. I've said many times before, some of the things that Republicans are doing around the issue, and let's just say DEI, or rooting out DEI, because before a DEI, it was let's get rid of critical race theory. Even though most people don't understand what critical race theory is, they can't pinpoint specific instances where critical race theory is being taught. But when Republicans go as far as the book bans, I think that there is value to some of the things, some of the books. So, for instance, the big deal that was made in Florida around the Don't Say Gay bill. Well, that's what it was termed. But if you actually looked at the legislation, that was referencing, I think, up to, I forgot what the second graders, I forgot what age that is when you're in the second grade.
Right.
But it was, if you are an 8-year-old, you shouldn't be able to go into a class, read, or have any type of instruction on sexuality. Personally, I believe that is just, I don't have any kids, but I believe that is too early to be talking about sexuality. Now, when you get to some of these books that over the years have been banned in one way or the other, Toni Morrison books,
Yes.
that is something that is more for, maybe middle, high school students.
Yes.
So I think from my perspective on the book bans, it depends on which level are you talking about. Do I believe that an 8-year-old should be taught about gender, sexuality? My answer is going to absolutely no. But if you are in middle school, or if you are in an AP course, so an advanced placement course in high school or something, and it is in some way what Republicans now like to decide as something being DEI, but the book itself deals with race, gender, class. Personally, I don't have a problem with that at that level. It is where that starts is where I disagree with a lot of my colleagues on the left.